Thank you for tuning in to Season 3, The Business Of, presented by the St. Michael's College Business Department. Today's episode will be focusing on the business of local coffee culture in Burlington, Vermont. Featured in this broadcast are Taylor Wallace, Ariana Peña, and Emily Tarr. We hope you enjoy our presentation called The Three Beans.
Welcome to the Three Beans podcast. I'm Taylor.
I'm Ariana.
And I'm Emily.
And we will be your hosts for today's segment on coffee culture in Burlington, Vermont. Please join us on our tour de cafe as we ride around the streets of Burlington in our Beanmobile to some of our favorite coffee shops.
For many Americans, the day has not officially begun until they have had their morning cup of coffee. Emerging from the depths of sleep, tired Americans drag themselves out of bed, trudge over to the kitchen while wiping sleep from their eyes, and reach for the container of coffee grounds perched on the counter, Ethiopia's finest. Moments later, the coffee machine begins to drip, drip, drip the golden brown liquid into the pot, filling the room with a sweet aroma. For those who do not have the time to prepare their own coffee in-house, a local coffee shop, Starbucks chain, or Dunkin' Donuts around the corner surely does the trick. Today we're talking about, the coffee culture in Burlington, and as college students, I think coffee is our best friend for everything.
I actually don't know a whole lot about where coffee came from. What about caffeine? When did people start realizing that coffee would keep you up longer at night or, get your day started? Ariana, do you know anything about that?
Coffee originated in Ethiopia. That is where it's first traced back to. Those are the earliest tales of coffee. But the finding of the effects of coffee is kind of unknown. So coffee history is very interesting because it's just drenched in folklore and myth. So about caffeine in general, and when people found out that coffee had this effect of keeping people awake, popular myth believes that the effects of coffee was first realized by an Ethiopian goat herder named Kaldi. According to the legend, Kaldi observed his goats, leaping about after snacking on the leaves and fruit from the coffee bush. And the goats became so energetic that they could not sleep at night, which is adorable if you think about goats just running around, all energetic. But Kaldi reported his findings to the abbot of a local monastery, who, after crafting his own beverage from the berries from the coffee plant, found that it kept him awake and alert during his evening prayers. So after that, the abbot shared the drink with other monks in the monastery, and eventually knowledge about the energizing beverage became widespread, and the rest is history. So that's kind of why we drink coffee today, and that's why we, reach for a cup of coffee in the morning to get our day started. That's why we, need our 3 p.m. pick-me-up when we are sitting through another class or, going to a meeting after work. So really it's just, that's kind of where the knowledge about caffeine came from. So
we pretty much owe goats.
Yeah.
Everything.
Oh, yeah. Little baby goats.
Yeah, for sure.
Just snacking on coffee plants, which I think is so cute.
That's awesome.
I don't know about you, but I drink coffee every single day. I'm not a person without coffee. So it's just very interesting that that's where it came from. It's been around for a long period of time. And I think it's even more interesting to know that it originated in Ethiopia, and then you go into a Starbucks and they have like an Ethiopia blend. Mm-hmm. So it's like, yeah, pretty interesting.
They're playing on the history a little bit.
Yeah,
their marketing scheme.
Yes, but if you don't know about where the origins of coffee are, you won't get that, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's true.
Is caffeine only found through the coffee bean, or is it found elsewhere in nature?
So from what I know is that coffee comes from a plant, and it looks like a small tree or like a large shrub, and this shrub grows these really beautiful like white flowers and like little cherries. So inside the cherries is coffee beans, and that's where coffee comes from. But other than that, there's no like other.
What about tea?
I don't know where tea comes from.
Yeah.
I don't know that.
I would assume that there's synthetically produced caffeine nowadays.
I'm sure there. Oh yeah, I'm
or
sure
just
there
like
is.
different things in nature are different in their chemical composition of caffeination.
Right. So maybe tea is just slightly different, a type of caffeine.
Right.
So that could be a whole nother podcast.
It definitely could. But I think, we're here today because we are students at St. Michael's College. St. Michael's College is located in Burlington, Vermont. And for those of you who do not know any history about Burlington, Vermont, it is the largest city in the state of Vermont with a population of 42,452 people, according to the United States Census Bureau. The most recent one was updated in 2015. But college students alone account for a significant portion of this number. So the enrollment rates for just the three biggest universities here, University of Vermont, St. Michael's College, and Champlain College, students total over 16,000. Yeah. So that's a huge, if you think about it, so Burlington is 42,000 people, and then 16,000 of those people are college students. So it kind of makes sense as to why we have so many coffee shops in Burlington. A recent study found that where a person chooses to consume coffee is correlated with their age. The study found that people from the ages of 18, or ranging between the ages of 18 and 35, prefer to consume coffee in a cafe, primarily in a cafe, whereas people who were 45 and older primarily consumed coffee in the home. So if you think about Burlington as a college town, it makes sense as to why there's 10 coffee shops just in one city. So
yeah, the Burlington Free Press actually had a pretty interesting interview on this, and one of the quotes was related to generational differences, that the previous generations may not have cared that much, but I think that has evolved. We're not at a wine model yet, but we're moving toward it. In a restaurant, you're likely to ask for a Cabernet or Pinot rather than just a red wine. People are starting to order coffee based on the varietal or country of origin. Being into coffee as a young person is a hip thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think, when I also read somewhere that coffee is now, the art of coffee is kind of likened to wine tasting or craft beer. It's a specialty thing, which is interesting because we see this new wave of coffee beverages coming out of the pre-ground beans from, a grocery store to actually getting a specialty beverage from a coffee shop down the street.
Yeah, in one of our interviews with Jason from Onyx Tonics, who we will introduce a little bit later in the podcast, he was saying that it's called commodity coffee. And that's kind of the trend word that they're using to describe, that wine tasting.
Yeah, basically people are willing to take more time out of their day in order to appreciate the value of coffee and kind of learn some more of that history, and just to take the time to get that more of an experience versus just seeing coffee as a necessity and getting it on the go. The Wall Street Journal has an interesting quote saying that quick coffee now signals cheap coffee and not what customers want. And on a global scale, an estimated 3.5 billion cups are consumed globally each day alone. And that kind of just shows that even though those cups might be coming in large quantity, some people are willing to cut quantity in order to substitute that for quality.
All right, guys, so, we've talked about the coffee culture in Burlington, but let's experience it for ourselves. Why don't we go downtown and visit some of our favorite coffee shops and see what's cooking down there?
Ariana, that's great, but I honestly don't know how we're going to get downtown. There's three of us, and we're college students, and we don't have a car. Taylor, do you have a solution for us?
Let's hop on the Beanmobile!
Wait, what is the Beanmobile?
Taylor, can you explain to me what this Beanmobile is?
The Beanmobile is a magical 3-seated bicycle, perfectly conducive to the exploration of Burlington's coffee shops.
All right, sounds good. Who wants shotgun?
I want shotgun.
All right.
Taylor, what the heck? You did not pedal at all. Those hills totally killed me.
Oh, I know, me too. I'm sweating.
Where are we? Oh my gosh.
I'm saving all my energy for my barista ordering.
What are you going to order?
I'm more of a vanilla chai kind of guy, but we'll see what's in store.
So here we are at Muddy Waters. We've officially arrived, located on Main Street just off of Church Street. And it appears that they have such a wide variety of offerings. What are you guys interested in getting?
Well, I don't know. I think I might ask my friend Amelia.
Amelia is a barista that has been working in the Burlington barista industry for a while now. She finds herself currently at Muddy Waters.
So Amelia, can you tell us a little bit about Muddy Waters and how long you've been here for?
My name is Amelia DeVoy. I've only been working at Muddy's since last spring, but I've been a barista in Burlington for about 5 years now.
Do you know when Muddy Waters was open and what the vision for the company was?
It opened 19 years ago, and I believe the vision was just to kind of create a sort of like West Coast style of coffee shop that was like really laid back and kind of had like some coffee that was sourced ethically and also smoothies and juices, and really it was the first cafe like that to appear in Burlington at the time.
So what do you think differentiates Muddy Waters from other companies?
Well, I grew up in Burlington, so I've been coming in here since I was a kid, and this is always like my first choice to come to. I think like the atmosphere is very welcoming. There's little notes hidden in the walls, and we don't have Wi-Fi, so we really like to encourage a meeting place atmosphere rather than a work atmosphere. Since we're open a little bit later than some of the other coffee shops in town, we're usually open till 11 on weekends. It's just nice to be able to have like a nice warm cocktail, grab a glass of beer while you're here, since it is like a welcoming sit-down environment rather than grab-and-go type of coffee shop. People are always looking for a place to go inside and warm up, so I think that makes, and since we are such a small city, there's a lot of room for growth still. And so I think that's why other shops have been able to open up and develop their own atmosphere. There's so many different kinds of coffees that they can import that we don't, so it seems like there's enough room for all of us, and that's really nice.
Since you talked about ethically produced coffee, can you tell us about the sustainability measures that Muddy Waters uses, or how do you guys source your coffee beans?
A lot of our coffee comes from Dean's Beans, which you can look up. They're like a very long-term, ethically sourced company, organic, fair trade. And then our other coffees come from Vermont Artisan, which is also like very well ethically sourced. And also at Muddy's, we compost. We try to keep waste very low. So I think we're actually doing a really great job in I've worked at other coffee shops and we waste much less product here. But we just we source some locally grown spirulina that we can add to smoothies and juices, and that's actually produced by a former employee's family of Muddy Waters. So that is a new item, and we chose that because it's connected to us, and it's a really unique thing to have, such a locally grown superfood like that. So there's a bit of development that goes on, just between members of the staff and the owner. He's really outgoing and friendly and open to change.
Thank you so much, Amelia, for your description of Muddy Waters and what the atmosphere is like here. It really helps us understand how Muddy Waters fits into the Burlington coffee shop crowd. There are so many of them, and you really helped with that. Thanks.
And there are no managers, it's more baristas and owners. And that fits really well into the small business structure because you guys are really able to apply changes quickly. And when a barista has an idea or a customer makes a suggestion, that information reaches the owners right away. It has a very quick stream of communication, and goals are more realistically able to be seen, applied, and followed through on, opposed to some bigger shops or bigger corporations, which are more inflexible and unable to make changes on an individual basis. So when you look at your hours, you guys are open till 10 almost every night and 11 on Fridays and Saturdays, and that's very different from your typical coffee shop, which probably opens early in the morning and closes early afternoon. And I think that's due to your wide variety of target markets. You guys try to offer products that attract a wide variety of people. You have your coffee, you also have fresh pressed juices, you offer almost a full bar of beer and spirits, but you also have a bunch of pastries and stuff too. And I think this really allows you guys to attract a different type of target market where people can come and relax after work, late at night, whenever they're really in the mood for a conversation or a warm beverage.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I didn't think of Muddy Waters as a place to go grab a drink and hang out with friends, but coffee is now becoming this commodity where people are looking for quality coffee, and then, on the other side of that, quality drinks, alcoholic beverages, that sort of thing goes hand in hand. I never really thought about it like that.
Well, Amelia, thank you so much for talking to us. I think we kind of, lost a lot of time sitting there. Why don't we just grab something quick? Let's stop by the Lunix pop-up shop.
Sounds good.
Perfect. Sounds like a plan. Taylor, you better start pedaling this time. We are here in the heart of Church Street, and we have the Lunix pop-up shop just in front of us, and we are here interviewing Chad about his experience and expertise on the pop-up shop. Chad is the manager of the Lunix pop-up shop, and he has been working there since it opened in about February of this year.
So Chad, can you give us a little bit of background about the pop-up shop and kind of how it got started?
Lunix by itself, carries a really high standard. They have stood the test of time, being here for 30 years. And I think they're actually one of the only restaurants in Burlington that has been here for that long. So, even with the pop-up, we have a huge name standing right behind us, which is awesome. And so the pop-up was such a genius idea for them to grab, because it really helped to kind of capture the rest of Burlington that either doesn't want to sit in a restaurant, maybe they don't have time for it, or they kind of wanted something that was more of the French style coffee shop as opposed to the restaurant, like pastries, really great coffee, things like that. So, and I'm assuming that that's probably what they were thinking as well whenever it became available, is kind of just another way to really capture great business and really help Burlington to grow even more.
What makes this little pop-up special? What do you think differentiates it from other coffee shops on Church Street?
We are the only coffee shop that has pastries that are made in a restaurant. So I feel like we have kind of taken that extra step. I can't speak for the other coffee shops as far as if the things that they have come frozen, or if the things that they have are from a larger either from a larger chain, or if that may not be their specialty. A lot of coffee shops are going to focus on the coffee. We're also focusing on the fresh pastries and things that we have, kind of from the restaurant side of it as well. So, I think that really is going to go a long way as well. Some of the things you can still get in the restaurant, but some things we have specifically for the pop-up, which is really great too. So, like all of the cookies you can't get inside, a lot of the pastries you can't get there, because again, we wanted to kind of keep that kind of in that coffee shop side. People they love supporting local businesses, and they also appreciate quality. They appreciate speed, which is a lot of what we've heard as well. Is not only are we a great little coffee shop, but we have really great food. Everything comes from the restaurant, with the exception of a few of the pastries, which we get from Sweet Simone's, and she's in Richmond. But they love that everything is always fresh. They love that everything's always hot.
So, who is your target market?
Honestly, I don't know that we really at this point have a target. We just want to capture Burlington. I feel like so much of the target has changed, because I feel like so many more people are enjoying coffee beverages. So many more people are working from home, so there's a lot more people out than I feel like they used to be. And again, also we want to make sure that we are targeting people that work downtown as well. So I feel like it's a really big mix. And again, really honestly targeting people that are kind of grab and go. Whereas the restaurant is obviously going to capture the people that want to sit down, kind of spend a little bit more time. We're kind of going after the people that are working in offices, or that are working on the street, people that don't have as much time but still want something amazing.
So are there any sustainability initiatives that this coffee shop particularly addresses? Do you guys have a method for sourcing your coffee beans? I know that you said you guys get your pastries, some of your pastries locally from Simone's Bakery.
Yes.
So can you tell me a little bit about that?
We do get a few of them from her. All the rest of them do come from across the street. All of our coffee beans actually come from Speeder and Earl's, which is also a local place as well, because again, that's not our kind of not our specialty as far as that goes. Like we also wanted to make sure we were doing things that were local and being able to help out the town as well. And of course, we use recycled products. We have it posted that we do that with all of our cups as well as our napkins and things like that as well. So
awesome. Well, thanks, Chad, for talking with us, and it was great to learn about your sustainability practices as well as why this location is so special. It's very interesting to see to have learned more about your target market and how it's kind of just everyone. So we look forward to seeing you in the summer, and again, thanks for taking time to talk to us.
So, what's our next stop, guys?
So let's get on that Beanmobile and continue our tour of Burlington to find the next.
Don't act like you're better than this.
Yeah.
You look so embarrassed.
No one can see you on this podcast.
The term Beanmobile.
Get on the Beanmobile with us and continue our journey to Maglianero's. Taylor, that was so much better. Thank you for putting a little effort in on that bike ride.
Guys, look at the dog.
Oh my God.
How are you? Oh, he's so cute.
We have arrived at Maglianero's, where they are known for being very dog friendly and bike friendly. Today we are talking to Nate, who is the manager of Maglianero's for about 2 years now. And so, Nate, can you talk to us about the culture of Maglianero's and just a little bit about the history of this coffee shop?
So back around the time that the coffee shop started, the whole building was actually a different purpose. And the heyday was there was a skate park downstairs. It was like very bike culture, lifestyle oriented. The elements that really sort of define us are our baristas. I think we have a really stellar staff. The coffee, which is not, ironically, it's not local. I mean, no coffee is local at the end of the day. But it's roasted in North Carolina by Counterculture. So the coffee, the people, and then the third are like sort of the cultural elements, which is like the cycling aspect of it. Have like if you look at our handlebar, like the emblem, the handlebars are an M, but they're also the down stem of a bicycle, and also dogs. Like we're realizing that like dogs are sort of one of the ways that people, like one of the lenses that people see us through. Burlington is it's really unique in a lot of ways in terms of it's a very small town that wants to be a big city, and so you have a lot of like meeting places, and coffee shops are just one of those. That's sort of the part that makes it not really distinct. I think like coffee culture in general is just a place for gathering, you know. I think in Burlington, the small town vibe really allows for all of these small coffee shops to create really tight-knit communities, like micro communities, and you know, people obviously will go to the shops that are most convenient for them, but it feels like each shop has its own vibe, its own sort of niche that it's trying to fill.
Nate, can you talk to us a little bit about the sustainability initiatives that Maglianero's, or Mags, as you refer to it, uses in everyday?
As a small business, it's really, I think it's, you know, our impact is not significant on the large spectrum, but we do try to measure and be mindful of our impact. So one of the reasons why we work with Counterculture Coffee is because they're one of the most sustainably oriented coffee buyers and roasters. So a lot of it comes from just being part of a bigger company who holds a really great sense of responsibility in the world, and so there's a lot of passive pride that we have around environmental practice. But on a daily basis, we have like compostable plastic cups. We have, all of our food that goes to waste, or the coffee grounds, they all go to the compost. And we still use paper cups that have a wax inside, and so you can't actually recycle it, which sucks. So I'm sure there are some things that we could definitely do to improve our practices, but we're definitely mindful of what we're up to.
Dog culture, yeah. I wish the Beanmobile had an extra seat for my dog. Maybe next time I'll be able to bring him down. I'm sure he'd love it here. There's availability of water bowls, and it'd be great for him to interact with the other dog while I get to interact with my friends.
What's your dog's name, Taylor?
Bruin.
Bruin. For the Boston Bruins?
Yes.
Actually?
Boston Bruins, yeah. He had originally when we got him, he had his first collar was a Bruins collar, so it kind of just fit really well.
Oh, okay. That's awesome.
I'm sure he'd enjoy being really close to the waterfront as well.
Yeah, we could go down with our coffees, and we could go throw the stick into the pond and have him chase after that.
All right. Well, thank you so much for talking to us, Nate. I really loved learning about the micro communities that you serve here in Burlington.
Yeah, I think that gives us a good lead into our next shop, which is focused primarily on commodity coffee. So are you guys ready to hop on the Beanmobile for one last shop?
Yeah, I'm ready.
We couldn't fit the Beanmobile through the door here at Mag's, but we got it parked outside, so let's hop back on and head up the road to Onyx Tonics.
Bye, puppy.
So here we are, guys. I'm basically pedaling for the whole team now, so it'll be interesting to see if we make it back to campus. Might have to take an Uber, but
It's fine.
Beanmobile has provided us with another stop here, and here we find ourselves at Onyx Tonics.
All right, guys. Well, we're here at Onyx Tonics, and today we will be talking to Jason, the owner of Onyx Tonics. Well, I love the colors of this coffee shop. It's beautiful. Also, turquoise is my favorite color. So
It has a very kind of technological feel with like a modern adventure, which is very different than like a Muddy Waters where it's more kind of earthy.
yeah, like classic coffee shop. Yeah, I could sit here for a long time and do some homework. So Jason, can you tell me a little bit about the reason why you started this specialty coffee shop in Burlington?
But yeah, the idea here was to really explore the differences between different coffees. We very rarely have blends of coffees from two different places. We really want to focus on, coffee's individual sort of flavor based off of where it's from. So similar to the idea of terroir in wine. Terroir just means place.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we want to explore. Yeah.
And do you have any specific insight as to why Burlington is able to host such a wide variety and an amount of shops in such a small area?
Burlington punches well above its weight for food and drink. It's something I say a lot, it's something that a lot of people coming from other places have noticed. We don't have really a lot of people. We shouldn't be big enough to support so many sort of specialty-focused kind of shops. Larger cities have less than we do. We got a couple of roasters and things like that. But Vermont seems particularly interested in farm to table, and in a weird way, that's kind of what we're doing. We call this farm to table coffee. Even the milk that we get is Sweet Grown Farmstead. It's like 70 miles away, so they're pretty close.
In doing my research on you guys, the website used to call it a coffee bar, as if it's a little different from a cafe and it's more of an experience. Would you say that is around?
Yeah, I would definitely say that. In fact, we've thought about even changing the legal name to Onyx Tonics Specialty Coffee Bar or Specialty or just Coffee Bar, to give that more. We are extremely coffee centric. We don't produce any baked goods. We do sell some baked goods, but we don't have much. We don't have a restaurant license, so we don't do much production of anything besides coffee on site. And then our menu is fairly unique in that we've got right now we've got those 7 coffees, and we have a separate cold brew coffee. So 8 coffees at any given time that we can each describe and give flavor notes for and help people choose. stuff like that. And then we do some specialty sort of drinks, like we're working with Cascara, which is the actual coffee fruit that comes around the coffee seed, which is your coffee bean, which has been sort of a buzzword lately, but it's kind of fun to work with, and it kind of shows off the idea that coffee is a plant, a fruit, the seed of a fruit. And I think it's something we don't necessarily think about it. I think we think about it like most people think about pepper. I don't really think about where pepper's grown and how that might affect the flavor, even though, like, in the back of my mind, definitely with my experience with coffee, I could see that would have an effect, but I buy pepper for its pepperiness. I think most people buy coffee for their coffee-ness. And basically, when I got started in specialty coffee, which is like regular coffee. Now I call it commodity coffee. But basically, specialty coffee is just coffee that scores 80 out of 100 or above on sort of a third-party kind of taste test. So that's how specialty coffee is kind of defined. It's still a pretty loose definition. And it's funny because, like, all over Scandinavia, coffee is huge. Like, it's a really large market, so it's not surprising actually that they've had a lot of development with the specialty side of things. But he said, "You guys are fucking crazy," because he said, "I can serve ants to people, live ants to people, but I have a hell of a time getting them to drink black coffee." So, like, he showed us several reviews. He's like, "This is a real restaurant reviewer, like a well-known food critic," and then he said that the food critic said that the coffee was worse than you get on a ferry, which is like their equivalent of like getting coffee on a train or whatever.
Right.
And yeah, the problem was the coffees can be light and crisp, and that's what Renee Redzepi decided to serve as the coffee, a really light, interesting, crisp Kenyan coffee. But like put milk in it, it's like putting milk in like wine. Like there's an acidity there. Right. It tastes really weird. It changes it, so it's not the way he wanted to serve it. And he thought, given the amount that he could control the diner's experience with food, he didn't really expect to see the same sort of problems with coffee, and he was astonished to see. And then that was his little thing. Like, you guys are nuts to try to do this, and especially do it exclusively.
Wow, that's a pretty interesting story.
I don't know if I would eat an ant. That sounds a little bit gross.
Yeah, I don't think I would. I heard they're spicy.
Ants are pretty good for protein, so I would definitely eat it.
Compact source of nutrients.
Eat a few hundred to really make it snap.
But it's fine.
We're talking, I don't know if I could do big ants. I would definitely do big ants.
The ants here in Vermont are huge. They look like they're pumped with steroids.
Yeah.
They're so large.
They only eat organic, so it makes pretty good sense.
Yeah, that granola, Vermont vibe that we have.
Crunchy granola.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know what that was until I came here.
Yeah.
I had no idea what that meant.
That's okay. I've lived here for 21 years, and I didn't know what locavore was until we did this project.
Yeah,
so
that's fine. We're learning. New things.
Well, Jason, thank you so much for that story. Does anyone else have any other questions?
Yeah. So fair trade has become a big thing in terms of dealing with the globalization of the coffee industry. And coffee is one of those things, as you said, where it's kind of hard to tell. And we heard from Nate that coffee at the end of the day is really local. And obviously we can't grow our own coffee beans here in Vermont where it snows in April. But other than that, can you kind of describe what the coffee industry does or what you do specifically to engage in either organic or fair trade initiatives and how that helps you on a consumer basis?
Fair trade and Fair Trade USA, the big fair trade labels that people look for, don't always work as well for coffee. There's a couple of reasons. One of the big, sort of quoted reasons is that when you guarantee a certain price per pound, you incentivize producing poundage rather than quality, which isn't necessarily, it's not inherently a bad thing.
Right.
But if you're chasing quality, it might, that might kind of fall through the cracks.
Yeah.
So our coffee's fairly traded. The only reason I know that is because people pay good money. People are looking for higher quality coffees, and they pay above the sea market price, it's called, to get these coffees. However, there's no great certification for that. You can't just do that and slap fair trade on it.
Yeah.
There's some certain requirements, like usually you you have to be part of a cooperative. And some of the coffees I get are from single farms, and not even necessarily large farms, but they're not part of cooperatives, things like that. So you end up seeing a lot of coffee roasters and coffee importers that have stopped labeling fair trade, organic, things like that, because they start to look like they're giving you something that's not necessarily lacking in their other products.
Yeah.
So it puts them on a pedestal, which they're not necessarily there.
Yeah.
The fair trade price per pound isn't crazy high. It's especially not high compared to like generally specialty coffee.
That is really interesting. Thank you so much for your input on fair trade and the fair trade labeling. It definitely puts a different spin on what sustainability means for coffee shops, even in the area. And what we should really be looking at as consumers are the roasters, and how the roasters are transparent with customers or the suppliers like yourself, Jason. So thank you for that clarity. I hope that our podcast is educational for our listeners, and that we're starting to have people look at the roasters rather than just the farms. Jason, I think you do a really good job of the whole farm to table idea, but with coffee. It was really interesting learning about specialty coffee and how you fit the niche of Burlington. So thank you so much. To Ariana, Taylor, you ready to head back up to school?
Yeah. Guys, I don't know about you, but I've had one too many cups of coffee for tonight.
Let's buckle on those helmets, safety helmets, and head on back before it gets too dark.
All right.
Perfect.
Well, that was a long day for sure, and I think we all learned a lot here. And I just want to take this time to kind of wrap up any new thoughts you guys might have about Burlington, or things you learned, or any kind of conclusion type ideas that relate to the Burlington coffee industry.
Yeah, guys, I didn't know that we had so many coffee shops. It never really even occurred to me that we had such a variety and all these micro communities. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite things was learning about how different each coffee shop truly is. I mean, before this, I just kind of stuck to one coffee shop and never really branched out. But now that I know there are different coffee shops that really foster different atmospheres and communities, I feel like I can go to Muddy Waters if I just want to read a book, and I could also just go to Lunig's if I'm on, a lunch break, or if I want to just pop in really quickly and have a quick, cappuccino or a quick French pastry. And I think this really just taught me a lot about how cute Burlington is. Like, it's so small, but there's so many different things that you can find.
The whole industry, it competes in a highly competitive market, but it shows that businesses that offer similar products and services, they each strive to design new strategies that will create competitive advantages and retain loyal consumers. And I think we've realized that at each shop, how each shop is a little bit different in different offerings as well as the atmosphere, and they each are surviving in different ways based on their different consumers.
Yeah, I think they all target to such a different group, but I think they also kind of just capture all of Burlington. And, Nate said it best when he said that the great things about Burlington is that it's just a bunch of small businesses, supporting one another. And there's room for everybody here. There's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and it really just captures all of the Burlington community.
Yeah, and Jason, he was talking to us about how there isn't a high competition between them. They are friendly with each other. Yes, there is a competition for, consumers and that sort of thing, but it's not a cutthroat industry where they're, anything is getting negative, or, they're trying to bash other types of coffee shops, and they support each other, like you had just said. And Jason also mentioned that as well. So we see across the board that coffee shops in Burlington not just exist and coexist with each other, but they all target a different group of people, whether that's the businessmen or the college students like ourselves, or the families that have grown up here.
Yeah, I mean, Vermont is known for their coffee. You look at Keurig and Green Mountain Coffee. Look where they've taken it to a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Yeah.
And Vermont is a great place that cultures this small business atmosphere. And we saw so many examples today of how successful individual shops can be.
Right. And these small businesses are not, franchises. They exist, and they were built on what the culture is in Burlington. And I think that's really interesting. It speaks for Burlington about how they can, have these coffee shops, but also that they are sustained in this economy.
So obviously, as Ariana said, the beginning of coffee came from Ethiopia, but now coffee is mostly grown in Africa, Latin America, and the Caribbean regions of today's world. The biggest consumers of coffee are Western Europe and the United States, with the United States having 55,246 coffee shops in the United States alone. And that industry provides a total revenue of over $32 million in the year 2016. So it has come a long way since some goats and some random
Since Caldi.
Yeah.
Caldi and his goats.
Yep. And the monastery. We can't forget the monastery.
Oh, gosh, I know.
Yep. No, that's very interesting. So as the coffee industry has grown, we have places like Nestle and Starbucks who have really cultivated the sustainability efforts. So I just want to share with you something that Nestle is doing to help in the developing nations. So Nestle is contributing to achieving the SDG goal of ending hunger, achieving food security, improving nutrition, and promoting more sustainable agriculture. We've pledged to introduce micronutrient fortified foods, roll out our rural development framework to understand farmers' needs, implement sustainable sourcing, and preserve natural capital. So it just says how Nestle is such a huge organization, and it's good to see money is being put into preserving the coffee industry in Africa and Central America.
So one final quote that I'll leave you guys with is comes from the Business People of Vermont, and it's written from a few years ago, before even more of these coffee shops opened, but it says, owners of local coffee shops might have been worried when they found out that corporate giant Starbucks was opening a store in downtown Burlington. But those fears have been put to rest as city residents have proven that there is no such thing as too much coffee in the Queen City. And as today we saw on our bike ride, that's very true.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that about wraps it up for today's episode of The Three Beans.
All right, so I'm Emily.
I'm Taylor.
And I'm Ariana.
Thank you so much for listening to us, and we hope you join us back for another episode of Season 3.
Boom roasted.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of The Business Of, brought to you by the St. Michael's College Business Department. For more information, please visit the college's website. Don't forget to tune in again next year around this time for Season 4, The Business Of, featuring new topics and new students. Special thanks to Professor Popovich and Jerome Allen for all their help. Cheers!